The morning sun filtered through the lace curtains of the small music shop on Maple Street, and 9-year-old Emma stood at the counter clutching a worn guitar case against her chest. Her mother Natasha waited by the door, and her eyes were red from another sleepless night. The shop owner was a kind man named Robert who had owned the place for 30 years, and he looked down at the little girl with gentle understanding. Emma carefully placed the case on the counter and opened it with trembling fingers. Inside lay a beautiful acoustic guitar, and its wood still gleamed despite years of being held and played and loved. Robert recognized it immediately. It was a Martin D. 28, and it had been played in this very shop many times by Emma's father David, who used to come in every Saturday afternoon to try new strings and talk about music. David had been a music teacher at the elementary school, and everyone in town knew his warm smile and the way he could make any child believe they could learn to play. 6 months ago he had died suddenly, and the whole community had mourned. Robert remembered the funeral and how small Emma had looked sitting in the front pew. Now here she was, and she was trying so hard to be brave. "I need to sell my daddy's guitar," she said quietly, and her voice barely above a whisper. "I want to get $100 for it so Mama can pay the electric bill. I heard her crying last night because she doesn't know how we'll keep the lights on." Natasha's hand flew to her mouth and tears spilled down her cheeks. She hadn't known her daughter had heard, and she hadn't wanted Emma to carry such worries. Robert's heart ached. He knew this guitar was worth thousands, and he knew it was probably the last piece of David that Emma had to hold on to. Before he could speak, the bell above the door chimed. A man walked in, and he was wearing dark sunglasses and a simple jacket. He looked like he was trying not to be noticed, but there was something about him that commanded attention anyway. Robert recognized him instantly. It was Ozzy Osbourne, and the legendary rock musician was in town for a private visit to a recording studio just outside the city limits. Ozzy had been coming to this shop for years whenever he was in the area, because Robert carried rare vintage equipment and never made a fuss about famous customers. Ozzy walked over to look at some amplifiers, but he couldn't help overhearing the conversation. He glanced over at the little girl and the guitar, and something in his expression softened. Emma didn't recognize him, and she just saw another customer in the shop. Robert cleared his throat. "Emma, this guitar belonged to your father, and it meant the world to him. I can't let you sell it for $100. It's worth much more than that, and more importantly, it's your connection to your dad." "But Mama needs help," Emma insisted, and her eyes filling with tears. "I don't know what else to do. Daddy always said when people you love need something, you find a way to help them." Ozzy stepped forward, and he pulled off his sunglasses. He knelt down so he was eye level with Emma. "Your dad was right about that," he said gently. "But he would also want you to keep something of his, and something that reminds you he's still with you." Emma looked at him, and confusion crossed her small face. "My name is Ozzy, and I know a little something about guitars and music and fathers. I lost my own father when I was young, and I wish I had kept something of his to hold on to." Emma's eyes widened as recognition slowly dawned. "You're the singer," she whispered. "My daddy used to play your song Crazy Train for his students when they needed to understand different kinds of music." Ozzy smiled, and it was a sad and knowing smile. "He did, and that makes him a good teacher. Most people think rock music is just noise, but your father understood it was about feeling and expression." He stood up and looked at Natasha. "How much do you need for the electric bill?" Natasha shook her head. "We can't take money from you, and that's not right. We'll figure something out." But Ozzy wasn't asking permission. He pulled out his wallet and took out several bills, and then he took out his checkbook. He wrote something down and handed both the cash and check to Natasha. "This is for the electric bill, and this check is for a fund I'm setting up in your husband's name at the school. Every year it will provide instruments and lessons for kids who can't afford them." David believed in music, and now his legacy will help other children discover what he loved. Natasha sobbed, and she couldn't speak. Robert wiped his own eyes. Ozzy turned back to Emma. "Now about that guitar. You're going to keep it, and when you're old enough, your mother will help you learn to play it. Every time you hold it, you'll remember your father's hands held it too, and you'll remember he loved you more than anything in this world." "But I wanted to help," Emma said, and her voice breaking. "You are helping," Ozzy said. "You're helping by being brave, and by loving your mother, and by remembering your father. That's the most important work any of us ever do." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a guitar pick, and it was worn smooth from years of use. "This was given to me by someone important a long time ago, and now I'm giving it to you. Keep it with your father's guitar, and when you play someday, you'll have a little piece of both of our stories." Emma took the pick with reverent hands. "Thank you," she whispered. Ozzy stood and shook Robert's hand, and then he did something unexpected. He picked up the guitar from the case and sat down on the stool in the corner. "May I?" and he asked Emma. She nodded. He began to play, and it wasn't one of his famous songs. It was a soft, gentle melody and something that sounded like a lullaby. When he finished, he carefully placed the guitar back in its case. "Your father's guitar still has beautiful music in it," he said. "It's waiting for you." That afternoon, Emma and Natasha walked home with the guitar and with hope they hadn't felt in months. The electric bill was paid, and David's memory would live on through children learning music and through his daughter, who would someday play the songs he loved. News of what happened spread quietly through the town, and not because Ozzy wanted recognition, but because kindness like that can't be contained. People remembered that grief is heavy, but community makes it lighter, and that sometimes help comes from the most unexpected places. Years later, when Emma was 17, she played her father's guitar at her high school graduation. She played that gentle melody Ozzy had played in the shop, and she had finally figured out the chords. In the audience, her mother cried happy tears. Robert, the shop owner, was there too, and he was retired now, but he wouldn't have missed this for the world. And somewhere far away, Ozzy heard about it through a friend, and he smiled. He understood what his father had tried to teach him all those years ago, and that the greatest gift we give isn't our money or our fame. It's recognizing when someone needs their burden lifted and having the courage to reach out and help carry it. That's what David had taught his students, and what Emma learned that day in the music shop, and what we all remember when we're willing to see each other's struggles with compassion. Sometimes the smallest acts of kindness echo for generations, and they remind us that we're never as alone as we fear, and that love continues even after loss, and that music like memory connects us across time and space. Emma still has that guitar, and she teaches music now just like her father did, and she tells her students about the day a rock star taught her that keeping what matters most is sometimes the bravest thing we can do. And she keeps that worn guitar pick in the case, and a reminder that kindness from strangers can change everything.